Ooh, ooh, ooh. Wow, eh? Welcome back, okay? You know, I just uploaded that top 50 songs yesterday, and now here I am going to be recording this top 50 albums of the year, and we had a good year, okay? I must say we had a good year. As always, I did say in a post, like, oh, I'm going to write something about these albums. I did not. Every year I have not written fuck all. I just sort of go off the top of my head, which I'm like, dude, some of these albums, you're like, I don't really know fully what I'm going to say, but whatever, it doesn't matter, right? We just go on with it. First off, I'll put this up here. Look, these are EPs. These are wonderful EPs I liked. I'm just doing this, imagining that I edit this later and this works. Here's the EPs. Stack them on my hands, maybe. I don't know. There were some good EPs this year, okay? Things that are, you know, a little too short to make it on this list. Anyways, let's just start this, okay? We have 50 albums to get through. Let's frickin' rapid fire, okay? Number 50, Ata, Sugar Rose. I feel like people weren't really the biggest fan of Sugar Rose's album. That's you, Fantano. But I like this. You know, I'm a big Sugar Rose fan. I understand that, you know, the quality of their new projects is not as engaging as maybe their later projects, but this is still very, you know, melancholic stuff, and I still feel like, you know, this instrumentation or this rising, this swelling with Jonesy vocally, I like it, okay? I would have obviously enjoyed some more post-rock, you know, sound as opposed to this, like, sort of classical music, but it still works for me. Next up here, Haunted Nation by Hackle, okay? I think Hackle is easily the best when it comes to the Haunted Mound, and this is a very tight, silly trap mixtape, okay? It's definitely worth your while. 48, No Highs by Tim Hecker. I guess I wouldn't say I'm like the biggest Tim Hecker fan, but this is a very, you know, impressive ambient project, okay? I don't listen to it often, you know, that's why I think it's going to be hard for me to really say much, but when I have listened to this, I really got sucked into it, for sure. Next up here, the compilation album Singles Collection by Little Ugly Maine. Yeah. They're all hits, okay? There's a little bit of a variety of sounds, I will say, but it still is working on this very, you know, underground rock sound, for sure. Like, it seems very lo-fi, or like it's an artist that isn't relatively very popular, but is making some bangers, making some hits. It's a good project. Next up, and I've only listened to this a few times, because, you know, I listened to it twice, actually, and then maybe I heard a few songs outside of it, but it's Destiny by DJ Sabrina, the Teenage DJ. It's a 4-hour-long album, okay? What do you want from me? I think maybe this could even get higher if I could really, like, identify specific tracks, but because of how long it is, I just had to sit with it, and it's really well made. It's got some really catchy, groovy elements on it, so I won't tell you to listen to the full 4 hours, but there's some fun on there. Next up, very short project, The Gray in Between by Jeromes Dream, this really, like, screamo album. I remember hearing about Jeromes Dream when I was much younger, just looking at stuff on Rate Your Music. I found the red album cover one, I don't know, and the guy's fucking screaming like he's a clucking chicken. It was so weird. But yeah, this project here, it's quite impressive. Next up, 10,000 Gex by 100 Gex. Considering how much of a 100 Gex fan I am, it being number 44 is certainly, like, kind of crazy to me. But I think when they are doing their hyper-pop sound, they're still selling for me. I still like what the other type of songs that they're doing, but not really as much. I think the only reason why I ended up putting it up here at 44 is I still think that 100 Gex are still a very conceptually tight group. With this album, I think that they are trying to have a very strong identity still. I think that certainly still shines. Next up, Uma, back cover. I don't know. This album to me, although it does have its math rock elements, I would say this is much more of this straight up alt rock project to get into. I think it's a very accessible rock album, and obviously too in many moments it's quite jazzy as well. It's pretty good, and it's like 25-30 minutes maybe. It's definitely worth your time. Next up here, Mi Chama di Gato K.A. Susa, I don't know if I'm saying that right, by Ana Frango Electrico. Very nice light project. I think it's a little bit more upbeat than her last album. Her last album, I would say, was much more folk-centered. This one isn't. Yeah, it's really good. I had a lot of fun with that one. Next up here, BB Angel by Tanase. 7 songs on here. Barely feels like an album, but it is an album, so I can put it on here. A lot of these songs are quite catchy, get stuck in my head, and with the 7-project album, it's very easy to get used to the, you know, get familiar with all the tracks on here. It's great stuff. Next up, Stiffy Hoven by Stiffy, this cloud rap artist from Argentina. Yeah. This is one of those albums that I'm not like paying attention to every specific track, but it's like you put it on back and forth. You already know all the catchy moments, all the catchy hits on it. Homie's got a nice flow, and I really think he's working on that psychedelic angle when it comes to the cloud rap scene. It's really good. It's really good. Next up here, 3D Country by Geese. Geese are a wacky group of homies, okay, I must say. Like, this album is, yes, very much so post-punk, rock-centered, but I think it has a lot of variety in character or personality. I think one of the best, I guess comparing it to something like Viagra Boys, maybe. But yeah, you know, lots of heavy moments, lots of slower moments, and you know, a vocalist that knows how to shine for sure. Next up here, This Is Why by Paramore. I understand that Paramore, when they got out of their pop-punk emo phase, were sort of leaning into this new wave sound. And this one is much more onto the post-punk like element of new wave, right? But it's just a tight project, okay? Moody songs, okay? I'm gonna respect Paramore still, you know, refining their crafts. Right, they really are. Next up here, Oh Me, Oh My by Lon Holly. Weird album. Weird album. I would say this is the one album on here where I'm like, I can't really put this in a box when it comes to genre. It seems like it wants to be all over the place, but I would say it's very reliant on the ambient genre. There's a lot of spoken word type moments on there, and it relies heavily on features as well, like Michael Stipe from R.E.M., you got Sharon Van Etten, you got fucking Bon Iver, and all of it works. All of it certainly works. Next up, The Beggar by Swans. Weird Swans album, okay. Less about the post-rock, more about this like progressive folk, avant folk stuff. Michael Gira as a singer is very odd, very creepy. Yeah, I do like the 45 minute song. Haven't really went back to it often, right? But giving it a go, listening to it in one go, it's extreme. It's quite extreme. Next up, 12, Ryuichi Sakamoto. Next up here, Oh Monolith by Squid at number 34. I'm kind of surprised that it's this low, only in the sense of how much I like their last album. So there is like a difference and favoritism to that. But yeah, it's still very much so like a technical, like technically on instrumentation level, very interesting to listen to. I think the main problem I had with this in comparison is it's a little bit dialed back in energy. It keeps its composure, which I feel like I don't want Squid to do that. It's still very great music, you know, it made it to number 34, but just saying for my own personal biases. Number 33, Fountain Baby by Amari. This is like some R&B, like Afro beats album. Very nice. Very nice, very smooth collection of tracks. Yeah, very impressed with it. Next up here, Today I Lied Down by Black Market Card. I just learned about this recently, you know, RIP again. This is like some 17-year-old kid who ended up committing suicide not that long ago. This sort of got some, you know, traction on the online internet space. And yeah, this is very impressive for someone who's like 17 years old. Very, very impressive. It's a very short project. It's relatively depressing lyrically, and it gives me like the Pavement, car seat headrest, lo-fi vibes for sure, but much more on a noise or shoegaze element as well. It's quite good. It's very good. Next up here, Step Dream by Quanic. Yeah, bro, Quanic is killing it. Okay, Quanic is releasing, you know, a more straight up late 90s, early 2000s, like, you know, hard rock, emo, shoegaze project. Like, it just doesn't feel like a critical music space listens to it, right? It feels like it has, you know, a very niche audience from that era, which makes me think too, like, I wish I could pay attention to this type of genre, because I don't know any other artists really releasing music like this, but I'm very glad to have this. It's very heavy, in-your-face stuff. And the more you listen to it, I think the more, you know, melodious it becomes. It's definitely worth a spin if you like that type of music. Next up, War Dyer, Earl Sweatshirt, Alchemist. Short project. Short project. Earl is on cleaner beats here, and he's still being, you know, lyrically odd to me. He's a tough cookie to crack, but he slides on it very nicely. I would argue, though, I do feel like he has more presence on this album than he does on his past ones. But yeah, it's great. Earl, Alchemist, what are you gonna do, right? Next up, That Feels Good by Jessie Reyez. Straight up disco album. Every song is trying to be a single. And, you know, it's at number 29, so I do think that she succeeded. It is groovin', groovin', groovin'. It would probably be higher if I thought the second half was as good as the first half, but 29 is good enough, okay? Next up here, I have Icho Oba with 12 Ensemble, live at Milton Court. This is a live album, okay? I can put live albums on this. This is my channel, buddy. What are you gonna do? It's really nice. It's really nice. This is like her last album, which is a really good album, and then like the singles she's released since then, and it's just well orchestrated stuff. It's a very nice listen. Next up, Saved, Reverend Christian Michael Hayter. That is Lingua Nota under a different name. This is like this album of like gospel hymn songs, her own songs that she kind of had in that tone, and it's fucking weird, okay? Like, it's not as like, it's not trying to be like, you know, the heavy industrial stuff, but like the way it's recorded, you know, makes it feel like it's some like tape you found in an abandoned church, right? It's got an odd feeling to it, but I think like what she was trying to do, like the vibe she was trying to give, she completely succeeded in that. It's wonderful. Definitely worth your time. Probably not for everyone though, I will say. Next up, The Loveliest Time by Carly Rae Jepsen. Yeah, this I certainly like this one better than her last project. More upbeat, more catchy songs right out the gate. I think this is as high as it is here too, because I do think there's a certain handful of songs that are like peak, right? That are like Carly Rae Jepsen emotion peak. But, you know, there's not much I can say about Carly Rae Jepsen other than, you know, she has great production. Her songs to me are just grooving, or, you know, easier to dance to than other, you know, pop artists in this era. You know, she knows what she's fucking doing. Shout out Carly Rae Jepsen, okay? Next up, Karanta, Danny Brown. A little bit more of a laid project by Danny Brown. A laid-back project by Danny Brown. Less chaotic, okay? Less like, this man's fucking crazy. It seems like he's settled down. He wants to talk about serious things and, you know, kind of, and wrap this project in, you know, the understanding of his aging, right? He's now in his 40s. It's really good. 24 here, Perfect Picture, Hannah Diamond. This one has just gotten better and better and better. Like, it's one of those albums where initially I really liked it, but now I'm like, fuck, like, oh, this song came on, oh, I can sing this, oh, I can sing this. And, you know, having that sort of hype PC music sound or bliss to it, like, that's just what I want, you know? Like, that's why it's up here. Like, she knows what I want, and I wouldn't be surprised. Actually, I don't know if it would ever get higher in my life, only because I still do think, like, the last few songs are still not as good, but, hey, like, you know, 24, bro. 23, Lahai, Sampha, really impressive project. I would say I need to listen to this more if it would get higher, because the one thing with this album is this is just like what I was saying with Stiffy Hoven. I'm not interested in it for specific songs, picking out specific songs to listen to. It's much more my experience of, you know, front to back, and being in that atmosphere that Sampha is given here. But you know, I do think an album that flows well like that is worth commending. I mean, I liked Process, but this is certainly a step up in, you know, artistic intent, I guess, is the big thing for me. Next up, Bewitched, Lavi, jazz pop album. It's just so nice to have on. It's so nice to have on. She's got a beautiful voice. Every song here it's got emotion to it, but it makes me feel very light. It makes me feel like protected. You know, like she's taking care of me. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay. Don't cry. You know, like that's like, I love that. It's just such a peaceful experience, you know? So yeah, shout out my boy Santi for, you know, he's been telling me about Lavi for a long time, and I was like, yeah, I'd probably like her. Didn't think I was gonna like her this much. I really didn't. Yeah, good on her. Next up, Integrated Tech Systems, Aesop Rock. Yeah, certainly the beats are good on this, but I think Integrated Tech Systems by A$AP Rock goes on here. First off, I'm not the biggest A$AP Rock fan. I listened to a few projects from him, and I was like, okay, cool. But this, just on a lyrical basis, I think the guy is a really great storyteller. You know, he has a strong identity, right? And with rap artists, having a strong identity is very important. So, there you have it. Next up, Let Me Update My Status by Tisa Korean. I just fucking listened to this not that long ago. It's on here because it is just, it's like 16, 17 songs, like very quick. All the songs are just, they're just nuts, okay? It's very clunky, like overblown sound. You know, the themes behind the songs are just, you know, silly ass shit. And it's a lot of fun. A lot of fun. It's making me smile, making me laugh. It's good when music does that, okay? Next up, Dog's Body, Model Actrice. Yeah, this is up there. This was a little bit lower, and then I had to put it up when I was revising because it's a tight project. It's a tight project. There's some slow songs on there that I really like, but for a lot of this heavy stuff, just the sounds that I'm hearing are so, like, they feel fresh to me. They feel new to me. I'm like, oh, like, wow, like the fact that they're specifically making this type of music is, you know, it's just engaging. So, yeah, Dog's Body. This is a debut album too, so I'll be excited to see what else they have to do. 18, Land is in Hospital and So Are We by Mitski. She strips it back. She strips it back. We have this more folk, alt country sort of album, and she is a sad homie. She's a sad homie. And you know what? I very much so like her more like grunge or noisier side, but I honestly think this may be my like favorite project from her, just on a consistency level. Yeah, good for her. Great, Mitski, keep doing what you're doing. Next up, Maps, Billy Woods, Kenny Siegel. Beats are great. This is just like what I was saying with A$AP Rock, except A$AP Rock, it's not, I was saying in my top 50 songs about storytelling, but it's not really just about storytelling. It's just lyricism, man. He is using big boy words. He is consistently using big boy words. It's like, I'm not listening to Maps by Billy Woods, I'm reading. Okay, this shit is a motherfucking book. I like it a lot. Next up, Burning Desire by Mike. I just listened to this one. Okay, but I heavily enjoyed it. I think Mike handles 24 tracks, 50 or so minutes extremely well. I can't still speak on lyrically. Like, that's not the vibe. That's not why I ended up here. I just love being able to be hooked on so many different types of songs. I think that was just impressive to me. Yeah, good on him. Good on him. Next up, After the Magic, Paranoia. Paranoia's back. Lighter on the shoegaze sound. Feels fresh, feels happier. The man knows how to make landscapes. He knows how to make landscapes. It is, and when I mean landscapes though too, right, I'm just saying that you're listening to an album, you're not caring about the specific song you're listening to anymore. You're just letting it hit you like a wave. Many of these songs, and I like the idea of being able to just sit in it. Next up, Hell Mode, Jeff Rosenstock. Man, I love Jeff Rosenstock. You know, his personality makes me happy. You know, this man, I think he may be in his late 30s, early 40s, and he doesn't want to conform to society. Pop punk music, doesn't want to conform to society. He seems to have a childlike mentality about things, and he has a big fucking heart. And I think it shines in his music a lot. Yeah, really good album. Next up, My Back Was a Bridge for You to Cross by Anoi The Johnsons. I had to listen to this album again, and it rose up. Like, listening to it again or looking through it, I was like, no, man, I actually think I like this album a lot more than I was, like, saying. Like, this is an amazing album. She has just got a powerful emotions to her. Very nice guitar on this album. I think the guitar vocals shine, some orchestration on it as well. It's a very short project. Yeah. Woo. I love this album. I've liked Anoi and the Johnsons before, but I don't think I've like really sat with a whole project like that. So anyways, okay, Paranoia's back with After the Night. This live album is really good. Okay, I think the reason why this gets on here is just for that last song. Okay, you know, which I did read somewhere that, you know, they were attempting to do that like long season live like Fishman's thing, and they certainly achieved that. So good on them. Now, next up, number 11, Soft Scars by Yule. I think the emotions come through with the sound of the music as well. So, yeah, really, really, really like this album. Heavily regarded for me. Let's get into the top 10. Riley has a top 10 that he has to share with you. Okay, so first up on the top 10 is Ooh Rap Ah Yeah, George Clanton. Did not think George Clanton was going to make it into the top 10. I really didn't think they were going to make it into the top 10. First off, he opened up for Caroline Polachek when I saw her live, and I didn't know squat about George Clanton. And driving to Toronto, I just put on all like 2 or 3 of his albums, and I was like, yeah, I like them. I was like, yeah, they're really good, but it didn't really I didn't get to know the songs before the concert, so it didn't really help with that. But later on, when this album came out, it really blew me away. This chill wave sound, it certainly reminds me of a '90s sound. Maybe a little trip hoppy, maybe in a way. Very ethereal ways of him coming on to this, vocally. This album too, very much so gives me this summer vibe, for sure. It's very short. Now it's 9 songs, and it starts off very strong as well. Yeah, if you like chill music that can be also dramatic. And also it's just good vibes. Okay, nothing about this is trying to get you out of a good vibe. This is certainly one for you. Next up, number 9, Live at Bush Hall, Black Country New Road, a live album, all songs not put on any studio projects. Yeah, first project without Isaac, and I think they're still killing the game. I certainly think they're still killing the game. Interchanging of who is the main vocalist. They are professionals at making post-rock music that. The type of instrumentation on this is some of the most engaging post-rock I've heard. Oh, this is post-rock great, post-rock great, post-rock, you know what I mean? They've already established themselves as being that important to me. Yeah, woo! They did that. They did that. Number 8, Lamb as Effigy by Sprain. What the fuck is this album? It scares the living shit out of me. It's often very hardcore, or it's just very noisy for the sake of being noisy. I mean, and we got 2 24-minute songs on here. I think, the singer is very chaotic, but the chaos varies. How their character shines out in the way that they're performing is often very different throughout this. I just think it's a great mood setter. I wouldn't really put this on with many of my friends because they may not like me afterwards. But I really like this project. It's 90 minutes long too. But yeah, I do suggest, sitting and listening to this and looking at the lyrics, because what you get from the lyrics here is you're scared of the guy. I feel very scared of him. Next up, Scaring the Hoes, JPEG Mafia, Danny Brown. What? Wow. I think this is one of the most forward-looking hip-hop albums ever. And I still can't believe I fucking met Peggy back when Veteran just came out. A little while after, and now seeing how their career has progressed, I'm dude, you're fucking, one of my goats. You are one of my goats. Then, at that time, it was you were becoming one of my goats. You know what I mean? I didn't have the catalog for it, but now I'm geez, makes me beam, bro. But yeah, JPEG Mafia, I think, is at his most, production-wise, or, what these beats are the most, just noisy, in-your-face, overwhelming, make you feel uncomfortable. And bars-wise, they're being silly. This isn't trying to be deep, and I respect this album for being as fun as it is, really. I think they sell on that. Next up, Grave Robbing, Leroy, Jane Removers, Side project, this Jersey Club project. Wow. Yeah, I think this is her most refined project. I like this one more than the Daria Core ones. It feels like post music. I respect the hell out of it. Good job, Leroy, killing the game. Next up here, Everything Harmony by the Lemon Twigs. Every song, I can put on every song, and I'm gonna be wanting to sing along to it. Lemon Twigs has. It's we just we're looking at a used vinyl place, right? And you're looking at all these old vinyls from the 60s and 70s. You're like, what's Everything Harmony, you know? I don't know what this is. Nobody knows what this is. You put it on, you're like, wow, this is fantastic. It seems straight out of the era. It's just so nice to listen to. I really like this because I really like Odyssey and Oracle by the Zombies, or Forever Changes by Love, or you know, even like Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys. Like those are like big albums for me, and I think the Lemon Twigs sells on that type of like vocals. You know what I mean? And it's a tight project with just continuously catchy songs that are very light, poppy, happy stuff. And even when it's sad, it's got a lot of joy to how it sounds. So I really like it. Next up here, Wallsocket, Underscores. You know, moving forward with hyperpop and a much more, you know, focusing on like indie rock, I would say, in some ways, but it still very much has a lot of like an electronic element to many of these songs as well. Yeah, Underscores. I love the variety on this project. There's many different sounds to get. Like, you don't even know who I am compared to Uncanny Long Arms, compared to Locals Girls Like Us, compared to Cops and Robbers, compared to Johnny Johnny Johnny, which is like an LCD Sound System song in a way for me. Like, I'm being transported to all these different feelings, and all these songs have, you know, a very good you know, storytelling, in the sense where it's just listening to it, you can, it's pretty straightforward what's happening to the songs, and it's engaging in that way. But yeah, I also love how fantastic or engaging or catchy a song can be, but feeling like it's moving towards a different genre than something else was. I love how creative and all over the place it is, for sure. Next up, Javelin, Sopan Stevens. Sopan Stevens just knows what he's doing, you know? You can think, again, I will say, when I think about Sopan Stevens, I mean, he has had he's been able to provide different vibes, right? You think about Illinois, you think about Michigan, how all over the place they can sound, right? Not every song is consistent with the sound of it. You have something like Carrie Lau, very like stripped back. You know, not much is happening with the instrumentation, but it still works, you know, better emotionally than a lot of different artists' music for me. And then, you know, lyrically, and not even just lyrically, but, you know, the way that he's saying the lyrics, it's the experience is just gutting. This one, I would argue, compared to Carrie Lau, you know, I'd say lyrically, sure, although I don't think it's trying to be as on the nose. But it has bright spots as much as it doesn't. But just like 10 of the, I think it's 10, no, I think it may be 11 of the best tracks I've heard this year. And it's weird for it to be number 3, because I didn't initially think it would be this high, right? It was lower. But I keep coming back to it, right? Or every time I do come back to it without trying, you know what I mean? Like, I'm listening to it, but I'm not listening to it with the purpose of, no, I think I have to listen to this again. It just so happens I'm listening to it, and the songs are growing there in my head. And I'm a big Sopan Stevens fan too, so obviously there's going to be bias. You know, Sopan Stevens would have been big, like, probably still is in my top 10 artists, but I'm saying, like, when I found out about music really in high school, grade 10, grade 11, Sopan Stevens was there for me. That would have been just a little bit before Carrie Lau came out, so like 2014. So Illinois, Michigan, Seven Swans, even The Age of Odds, those were all like part of my identity in many ways. So whatever Sopan Stevens does, I'm pretty much, you know, sold. Next up here, Desire, I Want to Turn Into You, Caroline Polachek. There's another artist I have a lot of bias for. I think this is the best pop album of the year, okay? I think it's, you know, the most engaging sound-wise, and yeah, nobody has vocals as good as Caroline Polachek. I honestly think that Caroline Polachek should be considered one of the best singers alive at this point, or at least how she is deciding to use her voice is amazing. It's genius. Yeah. And she has a great sensuality, I would argue, in a lot of these songs. Like this confidence that I think is on display in her music is that's being provided to me, right? Because when I listen to it, I'm getting this energy where I'm feeling this level of confidence too. It just makes me so happy. It just makes me so happy. Yeah. I think this and Pang to me are like very close to each other. Like I like them pretty much like equally. So Caroline, keep up with that consistency, because that's what I want. That's what I want. Next up, this is an easy one. Census Designated. This is also one that I didn't think was going to be number one initially when I listened to it, but I could not stop listening to it. I could not stop listening to it. And I also think that this is the album that's connected with me the most as a concept album this year, right? Like Jane Remover, she's discussing this like abusive relationship in a way that is so fucking depressing. And I think what adds to that depression level too is how drawn out these songs can feel, or having like outbursts, or just, she's understanding how to have like a different personality even within like through choruses. Like Census Designated, that song itself, I think, like the way that she's like singing like I bet she's so lucky to have a voice like that, like the way that comes out, where you have a song and video which is like much more like the personality seems a little bit like repressed in a way, and then obviously with the last song, Contingency Song, like the way that hollowness is almost singing like everything has been ripped from her, like this sense of singing after coming to terms with trauma. Like I just think applying this level of personality to it, and yeah, the shoegaze elements on this are fucking brilliant. I really do think that the noise, stands out for me. Like, in the sense where when I was first listening to this, I didn't catch those catchy elements within that instrumentation. But later on, now, like, everything about this is, serotonin. It certainly is. Jane Remover. And I'm really happy with Jane Remover being number one, because it was a couple years ago Jane Remover was number one for Frailty. And she was number one for a completely different reason, right? And, completely different sound of music. Even what it was trying to do lyrically was different. And I'm like, wow, like you can be one of the most important hyperpop digicore artists and move straight into like indie rock and shoegaze, and completely perfected as well. Like I'm also feeling like Census Designated, even when it comes to the indie rock or shoegaze label, is not reminding me of other shoegaze artists more than it makes me feel like it's redefining the genre. And I think that is a reason worthy of it being number one as well. So, wow, yeah. Great list. I had a great time listening to music this year and reacting to music. For sure. 2024, another big year. Another big one. I hope I will be back with videos, okay, very shortly. I'm going to take probably a small little break on doing things, but I will be most certainly here at the end of the month of January. Okay, if there's anything else you want to see me react to, of course, put a comment down below. I will see it. Thank you for watching. Peace.